1 year ago today, we were becoming friends with people. Now we're becoming enemies. This is Felicity Was Here. Welcome back to Felicity Was Here. I'm Heather.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Dr. Joe.
And today we're discussing Felicity Season 2, Episode 1, Sophomoric. Welcome back, ladies. It's so good to see you.
I can't believe we're on Season 2. This is so crazy.
It's been a year. Can you believe it?
Doesn't feel
That
like
doesn't make
it.
any sense.
No.
Yeah, that's weird.
How was everyone's summer breaks? What'd you do this summer?
A whole lot of nothing.
It was so amazing. Well, you guys
Yes,
don't...
you go first because I did nothing.
Yeah, you guys don't really have a summer break like I do. I got 2 months off.
No.
You still had to work.
I'm just
Sure
playing
did.
into the school year.
Yes, there you go.
Just go with it.
Well, a few housekeeping items to start off with. First of all, we wanted to let you all know that we are moving our schedule to biweekly this season. It's going to just give us the opportunity to spend more time editing and crafting these episodes. But that also means we'll have fewer long breaks. So we'll be on a more regular cadence this season, but coming at you bi-weekly. Number 2, we also did some technical work over the summer, and we've moved podcast hosting. If you're not super technical, you don't really have to know what that means. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple, you'll still find us in the same place. If you hit follow and you're still following us, everything's good. But for those of you who are like tech wizards and have somehow signed up for our podcast through RSS feeds, just make sure that you're signed up for our new feed, which is over on Buzzsprout. So we'll drop some info for that in the show notes as well. But those are the big notes for this week. We're super excited to be back covering Season 2 of Felicity. First, before we completely close out summer altogether, we did want to dive into this little known book called Felicity Summer.
Oh my gosh.
It really threw all of us for a loop, but we did a little Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants book club here where we shipped this copy out to each other and read it and shared our thoughts. So yeah, we're diving into this book. Wanted to say spoilers ahead for the Season 2 premiere, which I'm assuming you've seen it if you're here to listen to the Episode 1 rewatch. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the resolution of the cliffhanger and what it means for the book as well. And there may be some spoilers for some later episodes and seasons of Felicity as well. So if you don't want to hear about what went on in the book, if you've ordered it, planning on reading it, and you want to skip the book discussion, again, we'll drop in the show notes a little timestamp so you can skip ahead and skip book spoilers. But for now, let's dive into it. So I was Googling images for something related to Felicity for our social and stumbled upon the book cover. I was like, oh my God, there's a book about Felicity. And I saw that it was, in fact, legit. It was canon. It was put out by the network or by the studio. And I was just shocked. I can't believe like middle school me had not heard about this book and read it already. Ordered it immediately when I found a used copy of it on Amazon and texted you both right away asking if you had heard of it. And Dr. Joe, you told me that one of our listeners and friends of the pod, Kurt, over at the Strange Sessions pod, he said that they talked about it on the Dear Felicity podcast.
I believe it because he's our resident Felicity expert, so I believe whatever he says about it.
We shared on our Discord as well with our listeners, and some of them confirmed that they, in fact, talked about it on the Dear Felicity pod, and I just couldn't believe it. I had never heard of it. And the second that I got it and started reading it from page 1, my mouth dropped. I was completely confused about this book and had to then go and listen to the Dear Felicity podcast. So high level here, who Felicity picks in the book is not who she picks in the show. It really just threw me for a loop.
I mean, you warned them about spoilers, but I feel like we shouldn't recommend. Don't read this at all. Don't worry about the spoilers. Don't read it. Don't read it. Don't bother.
If you can find a really cheap used version, maybe.
Yeah, you all read it before me, a few weeks before me, and I remember you guys texting me like, this is bonkers, this is not good, and I'm like, it can't be that bad. It's got to have something good, and I read it, and I just remember texting you guys like, what the fuck did I just read? It was like a bizarro world. It was nothing like I thought, so disappointed.
Yeah. And I was just so shocked that it deviated so much from the show that, I had to go and listen to the Dear Felicity podcast to get the details. So a little background. According to the pod, they had one of the writers of the show on there, and he said that it was already in the middle of season 1 when the studio or network reached out to JJ about this book. The book was written by a writer and author, but apparently JJ just absolutely hated it, and he told the writers in the writer room, we are rewriting this entire book. Oh, and it has to be done in 24 hours. So apparently they divvied up the book by 4 people. We're each going to write a quarter of this book overnight. And the writer said that they were just adding shit in there to fill it up, to fill up a book. And there's 2 different recipes in there that take up multiple pages. You can just tell that it's a bunch of nonsense to fill pages. I guess at the time when they were doing their season 2 planning, they thought that Felicity was originally going to pick Noel. And so that's how they wrote the book. But then, as we all know now, she picks Ben. So there's just this huge gap in what actually happens in the show. But it also just leaves me with more questions than answers, because if it was the actual Felicity writers who wrote the book, I don't understand how the vibes were so off between the show and this book, regardless of factual what happened in season 2. So yeah, the very first page of the book here, chapter 1, at 35,000 feet. Felicity is writing, but it's essentially narrating her tapes to Sally. So she says, Dear Sally, I said I'd make you another tape when I get back to Palo Alto. That was a lie. I'm on the plane. I'm actually in the bathroom, on the plane, headed to Berlin. Noel is back at the C-37C, and I'm in the bathroom. That's how this whole book opens up. And I'm actually glad that middle school me never read this, because then I would have been extremely disappointed when season 2 premiered, her having picked Ben. But then they go to Berlin, and there's a lot of talk about condoms. They're have this running joke about a box of 64 condoms and let's use one of them. And should we, shouldn't we? And they eventually, start getting down and dirty. And she calls Noel Ben in bed, and Noel's pissed, and she ends up leaving Berlin early. And again, why would they have her pick Noel just to do that and break up immediately when they get together? Narratively, it just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, the whole hotel scene was so awkward with the condom references. It just didn't feel like that authentic Felicity-ness. Although I feel like the only authentic parts were when she constantly referenced things that had happened in season 1. She'd be like, Dear Sally, you remember I told you that story about how Noel and I tried to have sex and then the tree started on fire, and went into great depth about each scene from the season 1. I'm we don't need to know that. We already know that.
I mean, I guess I could see back in those days, you couldn't just put on a show on demand whenever you wanted to rewatch it. And so maybe you would need that recap over the summer of what happened. Okay. But yeah, that was the only part that did, you said, feel true to the storyline. One of the glaring, this is almost the worst than picking Noel part, is she goes back to Palo Alto and goes out for a run to clear her mind. I'm when has Felicity ever gone on a run or a walk or to the gym? It just was so not Felicity. I'm how did the writers write this into her story? She goes to the track at Stanford. It just was so bizarre to me.
They know her character. Why are they trying to change her? They could have had her go draw or something, anything other than running.
And then she ends up working at Stanford with some colleague of her dad's, and she becomes this assistant to a doctor who's doing a study on kids with diabetes. But she's just obsessed with talking about how they're overweight, and there's all this weird anti-fat or fat shaming stuff with her and the kids. I'm this doesn't feel right to Felicity. When she was talking to Javier getting the job, she worked at a plus size store and she seemed really just empathetic. It was a really bizarre turn for her summer job too. And then Todd Mulcahy's there again. I'm shouldn't you be getting married in Ohio or something? There were so many references that didn't make sense to me.
I also didn't like how she was constantly talking about, I think Elena might be having an affair with Dr. McGrath. I wonder if she's having an affair. That was every chapter leading into the Elena affair.
Yeah, it was weird because it didn't seem like she was really on to them that much in the show, but then she revisits it a lot in the book. So that was odd.
But meanwhile, she kept talking about how hot the doctor was that she was working for. Again, it just didn't match up.
Yeah, but he also gave her the ick real quick.
Because he was also having an affair.
Yeah,
with a coworker student.
Messy.
They got so lazy, they just reused the storyline in the book. They just had no other ideas.
Then there was also a phone call to Julie, which is different from what happened in season 2. Like, she hadn't talked to Julie at all. But in the book, there was a phone call and they chatted a little bit. So it seemed like maybe they were mending fences. And then at the end of the book, she does see Ben one-on-one. But they didn't really feel like they ended on good terms. Like, he's still upset that she picked Noel. And so again, like, going into season 2, she wouldn't have been on good terms with anyone except Alina. So it would have been interesting to see how you go back to school when you, like, have zero friends. For Felicity, like, Elena would be her only friend at that point.
Yikes.
But yeah, the book was pretty much a disaster.
Disaster.
I do have the way that I'm trying to think about it, because it is canon, unfortunately. Like, it's put out there in the universe by the creators and the writers. But again, spoilers for way later seasons. But we've seen that JJ and Matt like to play around with different timelines and universes. So I'm considering this book kind of an alternate timeline. A lot of the Team Noel people throughout the series just keep wanting to know, well, what would happen if she had picked Noel in all these different situations, right? And so I think this just lets us see that fantasy through and what would have happened, and just like come to the realization that, like, it's not meant to be, right? Like, it's just, had she picked Noel and gone to Berlin, this is what it would have happened, and it would have been a disaster. So that's just kind of how I'm choosing to see the book. Will I reread it? No, but...
Well, that's kind, because I see the book as an abomination, and I don't have anything else to say. That's all I can... That's the only word that comes to mind, and that's the only word I'm going to say on it.
Burn it.
I do need to get rid of it. I need to send it to Kurt.
We should do a contest, like, we'll do a poll and then pick a winner, and that poor soul has to get the book. We'll send it to them.
You want this terrible book that we just trashed on the podcast?
Well, it's a rare book, though. It's not terribly
That's
easy
true.
to get. It's just really a whole bunch of used copies on some random websites. I think the last one got snatched up on Amazon by me.
I'm not burning this. Like, it's going to be worth something someday.
Yeah.
It's rare. It's a rare find.
It is. I'll give it that.
But Dr. Joe, I think you're going to be writing us an alternate version, right?
Kurt is going to help me. We're going to co-write it. Yeah, he knows. He's been put on notice already. We just
with the help of
press pause on that.
ChatGPT.
That's the one.
Oh, man. So that was Felicity's summer, according to the book. But, of course, we're here to talk about the show, what actually happened on the show. So season 2, episode 1. It premiered on September 26, 1999, so just about 25 years ago. As we did last season, wanted to go back in time a little bit just to set the stage, where we were in 1999, what else was going on in pop culture and in the world. And LA Times actually argues that 1999 was a watershed moment for pop culture. They said 1999 produced a dizzying variety of essential pop culture artifacts, milestones, and turning points, not only remaking the culture as we knew it then, but creating the culture we live in now. When I started looking at all the things that did come out in 1999, I would say I have to agree. So many core memories from our childhood or teenagehood growing up came out of 1999. And I think just the whole Y2K drama really solidified 1999 as like a turning point in our culture.
It's true. I started dating Melissa's brother in 1999.
Oh, God. Right?
Yeah, that was a turning point for all of us. It really was.
Gosh. Wow.
I know.
How long were you together?
Couple years.
Right?
Couple years. Yeah.
All right. First reference to my family, season 2.
Well, last season we already talked about your parents' party on like dressing up as the Y2K bug.
Still don't remember
Right?
that.
Joe, didn't you mention that?
Yeah, your mom was the bug and your dad was the exterminator.
Do not remember that at all, but I believe you.
I want to say it was like a Halloween costume. I don't know if it was a
Okay.
party, but I don't know. I know that your mom dressed up like a bug, though.
I'll find the
That was really cute.
pictures.
It was
Yeah.
hilarious.
That's
Yeah,
cute.
do that. Do that. Post them in
That'd be
Discord.
amazing. In the summer of 1999, one of the biggest launches and cultural moments was the launch of Napster. I believe the summer of 1999, that was all Melissa and I did all summer, was just make mix CDs and wait hours for one song to download on your brother's computer.
And just turn all the viruses loose onto my family computer.
The number one song in the US on September 26th was Unpretty by TLC. And of course, the late 90s was known for boy bands, girl groups, and the bubblegum pop stars that ruled, like Britney, Christina, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, TLC, Destiny's Child. I mean, what a heyday for music, at least for us preteens and teens. At the movie theater, The Sixth Sense was number one at the box office, which was following huge hits like Blair Witch Project and The Matrix, and as we referenced last season, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
I was so excited that they mentioned the Blair Witch Project in this episode. I'm going to drop some little fun facts about that movie. I really appreciate it. I know Heather is definitely not into the horror genre at all, but I really appreciate this. I really appreciate this movie for what it did because it revolutionized movie marketing per the LA Times article that I'm going to be talking about. It was genius that when the Blair Witch Project premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 1999, the film's cast, they were a bunch of unknowns, and they used their real names in the movie, so they were listed as either missing or deceased when it was premiering at Sundance. So they really so deeply leaned into this. It's a genuine found footage thing. This was a real thing that happened, and it was like people were left questioning, was that real or was that fictional? Like, it was so confusing. It was so exciting and so fun when it was released.
Could you imagine trying to be one of those actors today and not having a social media or like internet footprint after filming that movie? That'd be crazy.
Yeah, they on IMDb, they were listed as their own selves, even when IMDb comes out later, because they use their real names. So it's indistinguishable. I remember years ago, the one character, who's also named Heather, right? She was saying people were sending her mom sympathy cards because they thought she was dead. It was that significant culturally. Like, it just changed everything because they used internet online marketing in a way that had never been used before. One, because the internet was still coming up. But two, like, they just did this whole thing, like this guerrilla marketing where they had a BlairWitch.com website. And that had the mythology of the Blair Witch, and they had fictional police reports, newspaper articles, journals, interviews. They had Heather's diary on there. They really built up this whole world like as if it was real. It was nuts. That was really exciting. And they even did some mockumentaries beforehand to lean into the Blair Witch. They did The Curse of the Blair Witch that aired on the Sci-Fi Channel in 1999 prior to the release of the Blair Witch Project. They went all in.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, and they did another one too, Sticks and Stones, an exploration of the Blair Witch legend. Yeah, they went all out for this, and it was really an exciting time. And I remember, and I feel bad for people who cannot have that experience ever again, because that was just such a once-in-a-lifetime experience to come at a theater and be like, what did we just watch? Did that really happen? Do you think that really happened? What's going on? It was so much fun. It was such a great time.
Well, and even The Sixth Sense, like that twist at the end of the movie was like still to this day. It's like a huge cultural touchstone, and that like we grade a lot of other movies by, like just that shock of that twist. I mean, it's hard to compete with that. And I have seen The Sixth Sense, and I saw it in theaters.
I think we saw it together. Didn't we?
Did we?
I feel like both the scaredy cats were like...
I thought I went with my mom and sister.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Because I remember, like, my dad was out of town or something, or maybe we watched it on TV later when it was out on TV. But, like, we all watched it, and literally we had to sleep with the hallway light after we watched it because all of us were so freaked out. And I remember, like, I was afraid to walk next to my bed because Misha Barton's little hand was going to come out from under the bed and grab me. I couldn't go to the bathroom in the middle of the night because some kid was going to walk by the bathroom and come grab me. I was so scared of that movie. And I think it was PG-13. So yeah, I had no chance against Blair Witch Project. I've never seen it the whole way through.
Yeah. Well, I was a little bit older. You guys definitely would have been too young to go see that at the theater. That would have been totally inappropriate. It was creepy, but it was a good time.
On the lighter side, the sheer amount of teen movies that came out in 1999 is also astounding. I mean, I think of most of these movies as my childhood, pre-teenhood. And I thought they were scattered across a few years, but they were all 1999s. Cruel Intentions, She's All That, 10 Things I Hate About You, Never Been Kissed, Varsity Blues, American Pie, Drive Me Crazy, I'm a Cheerleader, Drop Dead Gorgeous. Those were
Wow.
all just 1999.
What a year.
That's amazing.
We must have just lived at the movie theater that year.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because last season, I think we talked a lot about the teen TV shows that were becoming popular on the WB and started with 90210 before that. And I think that like now 1999, we're seeing that like in movies, like the teen demographic is really being catered to. So, yeah, I think that it's just a really interesting moment for pop culture. I also see, yes, that the shadow of the Y2K bug loomed large, but people were still just like really excited about the future and the new millennium. And so I think we see some of that in our pop culture too. Oh, what did you all do this summer after your freshman year of college?
Hung out with Melissa's brother.
Yeah, probably tagged along with my brother.
Well, I was trying to think, Melissa, was that the summer that we were camp counselors? Or was that after sophomore
I don't think
year?
it was that one. I think that was after sophomore year. Because that was the year, that was the summer I turned 21. No, it wasn't. Never mind. It was our sophomore year, I think. The end of our sophomore year.
Okay. I was thinking it was after freshman year because I had like, no internships, no plans. Like I went home. I couldn't remember. I'd have to look back at like my old school resume, but I think, Melissa, we were camp counselors for children with special needs, and I was extremely unqualified for that job.
Yeah. You're right. It was that summer. We were camp counselors and we were terrible at it.
I mean, I didn't even babysit growing up. Yeah, I just can't believe they would even give me a job doing that.
Can't believe we didn't get fired. That was crazy.
They probably just needed bodies, needed people. I was so tired
at
the end of every day. So yeah, none of us went on fancy road trips and none of us went to Berlin. But let's dive into what Felicity did. So episode 1 of season 2, Sophomoric, of course, had to look up. Webster's Dictionary defines sophomoric as immature or lacking in judgment, or overconfident of knowledge but poorly informed and immature. So essentially, you think you know what you're talking about, but you really don't. You're immature and you don't have enough knowledge. So that I was always just trying to think, what's the theme of this episode? And I think we will see a lot of sophomoric actions in this episode. This one is written by JJ and Matt again, and directed by Larry Trilling. And also in the credits, you'll see that Greg Grunberg and Amanda Foreman are officially series regulars, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Pressing play, I was so excited to immediately find out who Felicity picks. Guys, that's what's going to happen? No. JJ and Matt have other plans. They're going to make us wait a little bit longer, even though I probably spent the whole summer just rewinding my VHS tape of taping that last finale episode, trying to like read lips, see where she was going in that cab ride. But we pick up with her in the cab, and Felicity's telling Javier. Yeah, Javier's back. Side note. So he got his visa. But she's telling Javier that she was sitting in the cab and it was like a moment of truth for her. But as she's telling the story to Javier, her beeper goes off. LOL, she's got a beeper. And it's Megan. Their floor meeting is in 15 minutes and she's got to go. But Javier says he doesn't give two hoots. Who did she pick? She's just like, oh, I can't tell you. Like, has to be told as a big story. And Javier says, I know I don't always say things that I mean exactly, but this is serious. Tell me who the hell you did go with, or I will kill you.
I love that he was like all of us in that moment. Just tell us.
Yeah, so relatable.
Hard agree. I will kill you, Felicity. Felicity says she's going to tell him later. But now he's all emotional. But I do think it is like a really funny, lighthearted way to start the episode. But yeah, I'm with Javier. Just, I want to kill her. Tell us already. So then we do go, after the credits, back to Felicity's dorm room with the classic her sitting on her bed, the silhouette of her against her window, and recording a tape to Sally. So she tells Sally that it's weird being back, first of which because of her new roommate. All she could do was think about Ben and Noel and how she was going to deal with the consequences of last year. But the only comfort was that she was going to have a single room this year as an RA. So we see her checking in at Kelvin, already missed her first RA meeting. But the Cliff's Notes of the meeting is that another dorm had asbestos. And so now they've had to double up all the people. And so now her single has become a double. So she's got a roommate now. And guess who it is? It's Megan again.
Of course.
Yep. So she opens the door to her room, sees Megan. Megan, of course, first thing out of her mouth is a diss. Like, nice work missing the first RA meeting, which is funny because Megan's the responsible one all of a sudden. She's the one making the meetings. And Felicity just responds, "We're roommates again?" And Megan I cackled. She said, "Yeah, that's what I said, except louder, angrier, and between we're and roommates, I added a word." Just so perfect.
Love it.
So Felicity and Megan are co-RAs, and they have 46 advisees, which is really only 23 per person. So that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but she's stressed out about it. So Felicity and Megan go to host their first meeting with their advisees. So Megan, per usual, she's speaking the truth, and Felicity's trying to sugarcoat everything to the advisees. And Megan also decides to share with everyone Felicity's sexual history with the whole floor. Felicity gets pissed, of course, and they just cut the meeting short. But then one of the advisees comes up to them after the meeting. It's the actor Michael Pena, who I think most people have probably seen and would know and would recognize. But he's very young here, and he approaches them after the meeting, introduces himself. His name's Berkey, and he wants to know if RAs can date advisees because he's like super into both of them. Felicity says no, but Megan said that didn't stop her last year. So Felicity's pissed that all of her dirty laundry is being aired by Megan and says that it's not going to work, them living together again. She's going to try and transfer. Did you all live in the dorms sophomore year?
Yes.
Yep.
And I had a crazy roommate too, who had terrible anger problems and was awful. So I can really relate to Felicity. Yeah, it was bad times.
She didn't do any love spells?
Don't think, not that I know of, but yeah, just like constantly angry and yelling at me. So I guess Megan would have been a better roommate.
Yeah, luckily sophomore year I selected my roommates, so I got to room with friends in a triple.
Nice.
So then we go back on the streets of New York, and we see Julie get out of a cab with all her luggage, and she spots Sean on the street corner, who's selling his latest venture, which is a freshman packet for $15, down from $20.
I was like, $15, that doesn't sound bad. But then I looked up the conversion and I was like, oh that's like $28. That's a little over $28 in today's money. So I'm like, yeah, that would be a lot for a
I was going to say, down in 1999, I was like, $20 sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he said that there's aspirin in it, maps, pepper spray, condoms, energy bars. It's everything that a freshman would need to survive in New York and at college.
Yeah.
But he hasn't sold any yet.
You know what?
It sounds like this is actually a great idea.
I was just going to say, out of all his ideas, I would actually have bought that.
Yeah, this was a winner. It's just the pricing threw him off.
Yeah.
But at the same time, $5 seems too cheap.
Yeah.
Like aspirin, like medication, that stuff's expensive.
Pepper spray is expensive.
Fun fact, Dr. Joe just bought me some and sent it to me.
Oh.
She was fearing for my life, I guess.
This girl, I was like, blah, blah, blah. What are you doing, blah, blah. She said, I'm out for a walk. And I was like, do you have pepper spray? What? Pepper spray? Who's that? Never met her. And I'm like, what? No, we're putting an end to that.
It's like the middle of the day. It's in a busy city.
Doesn't matter.
Exactly. Exactly.
No,
She's like, there's people all around. I say, that's the problem.
But there's people all around.
I try.
So Julie says that she hasn't talked to Ben since May, but she's got a new outlook this year. She says she's just going to have fun. She's got a single room, and last year was a real dark patch. I'm like, okay, calm down. It was like I guess a lot of bad stuff did happen. I was like, it was one little thing at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess there were quite a few things, so fine.
Yeah, she had a kind of tumultuous season that first year.
But yeah, not just related to Ben. There were lots of other things. That's true. But Sean was like, oh, that can't be. That's the year that you met me. So he wants her to stop by later and say hello. But she goes to her room, which is supposed to be a single, but instead there are two very chatty girls in there as well. So she too has been affected by this asbestos problem that is causing a double up. But I thought singles were doubles, but somehow her single has turned into a triple.
Yeah, that was weird because they said doubles turn into triples, but I'm like, that's quite a big leap. That was obnoxious.
Yeah. So Felicity tells Sally that it's weird. She's back in New York, but it doesn't feel the same. And she said maybe that's just because she hasn't seen anyone yet. Or maybe Megan put a hex on her. But she goes to the office to try and get this transfer. So she doesn't have to live with Megan anymore. And as she's talking to the guy in the office, we see that Julie walks up behind her and sees her. But the guy at the office says that it's unlikely to get a room change. And so as Felicity turns around, she sees Julie and says basically, never mind, I was also trying to get a transfer. But Julie then walks away. She doesn't say a word to Felicity. So Felicity says to Sally, 1 year ago today, I was becoming friends with people. Now I'm becoming enemies. And that is my first angsty away message of the season.
It's a good
Yeah,
one.
that's dramatic. That is so fucking dramatic, though. I was like, oh my fucking God. Becoming enemies? You're lucky if that girl becomes your enemy, because right now she doesn't give any shits about you. Zero fucks are being given. So you are people who used to know each other. You're not even enemies. Enemies is a step up from what's going on right now.
Yeah, but Felicity is the main character of her own world.
Yeah.
And then, well, enemies here, I don't know. Maybe it's not just Julie she's talking about. So then we see that Felicity sitting in the hallway on a bench filling out her paperwork to still try and get that transfer. And in slow-mo, of course, got to drag it out as far as we can. We see Ben appear at one end of the hallway, and then we see Noel appear at the other end of the hallway. They look at each other and at her, and in slow-mo, Noel starts walking toward her, looking at her. She smiles at him, and he turns his head down and keeps walking. But we don't know. Well, I guess she did say she did pick one of them. I'm like, we don't know if she picked Ben, but he brushes past Ben. Ben walks up to Felicity. She gets up. He smiles his little smile.
Oh, so cute.
And
Perfect little
he
smile.
kisses her. And so we know not only did she pick him, they are romantically involved
I
now.
did appreciate that they showed them like kiss. So we didn't have any, was it just a friendship trip? No, they are kissing.
Will they, won't they? Yeah.
But I just love that whole dramatic scene. They could have done it in a different way where she just like meets one of them somewhere or whatever. I love that it was the two of them at the same time in the hallway, just leading up to it. It was so suspenseful. Still love that.
Still. And we see that choice.
Yeah.
It's left or right,
Mhm.
which end of the hallway. It's very obvious, but yeah, it was good, but devastating to do. And I think also just his reaction, like the immediate looking away and walking right by her, just knowing like, they're not going to be friends anymore either. That whole year, their friendship as a Team Noel person, that hurt too. And he's not even talking to her. Yeah, it's intense. Of course, Ben's hot and they look adorable together. And it's, the cute fantasy. Oh my God, they're together. But so then we finally get to rewind to Felicity in the taxi as she tells Javier what happened. So she does tell the driver where to. The airport. So and Javier interrupts her like, wait a minute, I thought you said you chose Ben. And she says, I know, but when the driver asked me where to, that's what came out. So we find out that she did initially choose the airport, choose Noel, but she says that choosing Noel felt right. It felt safe. So she knows that they would have had a great time. She knew what that trip to Berlin would be. But then in that moment, she changes her mind and says, go to Worcester Street. So she just kept wondering what would happen if she went with Ben. So she pulls up to the loft in the cab, and Ben grins as she gets out of the cab. And Javier says, how could you not go with Noel with the pinky ring? And his smile is so electric. But Ben with his new haircut. You have an incredible buffet of men. I would just like to say, yeah, she does.
Yep.
The lucky little bitch. So she tells Javier that what was really great about the trip is that she finally got a chance to know what Ben was really like. He says sex. She said no. He's like, oh, good for you. So they didn't do it. It still sounds like they got romantic if they're kissing now. At that moment, Ben comes up to their table. Javier's grinning at him. And he's like, are you telling him the story? It was a very cute little exchange. And Javier said that he wishes he would have been there. Ben said, yeah, that would have been interesting.
Oh my gosh.
But an entirely different trip.
That was so funny. He's like, yeah, that would have been interesting. It's so funny, but so hilarious. I love this moment because now they have a story. Like, it's their story. Are you telling him the story? And it reminds me of how Hannah and Noel had their inside stuff, and Felicity and Noel did it at one point too. And now it's they've got their own thing. Like, you're telling him the story.
Yes.
So adorable.
So cute.
And when he walked away, he touched her shoulder and
I
she
was
touched his
just
hand.
going to
and I was
say
like,
that.
oh my gosh. Love it.
I noticed
Love the
that,
contact.
and I loved it. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up
It
too.
was so subtle, yet so
Mhm.
sweet.
He
I
does
just
that
got chills.
He does that multiple times in
Yes,
the episode, the
yes.
shoulder touch.
I've got goosebumps and I'm sweating. I'm dying right now.
See what a shoulder touch
Oh my
does to
gosh.
us? Oh my God.
Then Javier asks Felicity, well, what about Noel and Julie, who hates you now? She says that Julie hasn't returned her calls, and she did call Noel once in Berlin, and a girl answered. Javier says, well, good for him. He shouldn't be like pining away after you all summer. You broke his heart. And I'm saying, yeah, truth. He has the right to do whatever he wants now. So then she says, yeah, Noel walked right by me yesterday, which I deserve. Javier says that once she finally talks to him, everything's going to be fine. But Felicity doesn't seem too sure.
You know what kind of makes me a little upset is that Noel is so angry that she didn't choose him. But yet, at the end of the first season, he knew she and Ben had kissed and that they had feelings for each other. And he sent her the plane tickets anyway, and was like, okay, I still want you to go with me or whatever. So he knew she kissed him, and he still wanted to, like, he wasn't angry with her then because he still wanted her to go with him. I don't know. I just thought his reaction was a little over the top, considering he already knew beforehand that there was a possibility that she would choose Ben. What do you guys think?
That's right. I have some more thoughts on that later, too.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, I'll dump them out now. I'll just say that he, in his letter, no matter what happens, whatever he said, I want to replay that clip right now for everybody. Like when he has his words with her later. Like, hey, wait a minute. I thought no matter what, you're the most important person to me in the world, blah, blah, blah. What? So they really jacked up the conflict this season. They really heightened the conflict. It starts out with a bang here, season 2.
Yeah. I will say, I think the kiss, maybe he was more willing to just look over that, like, maybe in the moment, like you got caught up or whatever, but if you really do want to make this work, I'm willing to make it work. Come with me to Berlin type of thing. But now that she has legit picked him, I could see being mad. And also, like, being mad right now doesn't mean he would be that way forever. Like, just saying, yeah, you'll always mean a lot to me. Yeah, I'm mad right now. I agree later when he's like, I never want to see you again. Yeah, that does not jive with his letter.
Right. That's what I had a big problem with. I think it's totally reasonable for him, but the fact that he went and specifically wrote those things in the letter is what I have a problem with, because he went out of his way to say, no, we're always going to be cool. You overestimated that, buddy. I will say this. I can tie this back to 90210 with the love triangle. Spoiler alert for everybody who wasn't around in 1993. This is only a million years old, but Dylan had to choose between Brenda and Kelly, and Brenda got pissed because he picked Kelly. And she said later, she's like, I never thought I'd lose. And this kind of reminds me of, like, maybe Noel didn't think he was going to lose, and that's why he got so mad later. So I'm trying to, like, get my head around his reaction, because Brenda and Kelly were both like,
I felt like he was fighting an uphill battle all season, like, where he didn't think he measured up to Ben. So I don't know if he thought he would win.
That was a him problem.
No, I know. I'm just like, he thought he would win. I don't know if he.
I was trying to give him credit, girl, but you backtrack and roll it back. That's fine.
I'm always gonna be honest when he does fuck up. So yeah, I don't like that he said, like, he never wanted to see her again. We'll get there.
Yeah, we will. I'm still sweaty though. And meanwhile,
enjoy. So we finally go back to the mail room, the hot spot to meet up with folks, and Julie's checking her mail, and Sean goes up to her, and he's so excited because he sold a bunch of freshman packets. Oh, I think I forgot to say that. She said, no more than $5 for those freshman packets. And so I guess he started selling them at that price, even though that does feel a little low to me.
That's around $9 in today's prices, so it's still, it's okay.
I just wonder if he's making any money, what the margins are like for $10 basically. But he sold a bunch now, at least, which is good.
Feels good.
He can tell she's upset, and it's because she's living with 2 cheerleaders. So Sean very quickly says, hey, you can always stay in the loft for a while if you need to. But she decides that she's going to tough it out. Have to ask you all, do you think Sean has some ulterior motives here?
Yes. Yeah, he did last year too. He totally had a crush on her last year even. It was so obvious. And he's like, oh, hey, how can you say that? It's the year you met me. It's like, bro, calm down.
And like your roommate dated her and they just broke up. Like they haven't talked and you're immediately offering the loft for her to stay at. That's just wild.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so messy. So messy.
So then we go back to Felicity's room and she's finishing up her tape to Sally when Ben stops by. And in this scene in particular, I already am noticing a change in Felicity's wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
She has this adorable green halter top on. Like the color was so beautiful on her, the fit, everything. And I noticed that her and Ben are matching. Like he's also wearing this olivey green shirt. And I'm like, oh, is that a sign that they're like really in sync right now and very together? I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it, but I just
read
noticed
away.
I'm like, they're matching.
I love it. I love that. I didn't notice it, but I love that you did.
Yeah, and so then he asks her what she said on her tape. She said, nothing, it's private. But he continues to push her, and she says that she asked Sally if Noel or Julie would ever forgive. And this prompts Ben to ask her if she's sorry that she went with him. And all she says is that she just wishes it weren't so complicated. So he says he also wishes it weren't complicated, but then they make out a bunch. So
Hot.
he's not too, they're not too bent out of shape about it.
Hot. Not the hottest Ben moment, but a hot one.
I was mostly struck by how sweet he looked in this episode. I wasn't getting like the big hot vibes from him this episode. I thought he was just so sweet. Like he looked so into her, the looks he gave her, the way he looked at her, it was just like, oh my gosh. It was like one of those, find someone who looks at you like that. Like, it was so good.
They're very like tender moments.
Yes, tender. Yes. That's such a great word. Yes.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, I got chills again.
Giving all the Ben fans everything we've ever wanted in this episode. It was so good.
So adorable.
I'm glad you mentioned her change in wardrobe because I definitely noticed that too. Like the start of the first season, you'd assume is around the same time, like September in New York, but she was wearing like heavy sweaters and I'm sure it was hot as hell. So it's kind of nice now that they're like showing her in actually tank tops and halter tops and all that.
Weather appropriate
like,
summer.
Yeah.
And I do think way back when, might be in one of the commentaries on the DVDs, I think they also mentioned that the network wanted them to make her a little more feminine and use more bright colors in season 2 because ratings for season 1 weren't amazing. And so I guess they felt like, of course, it has to do with her looks. Yeah, which is backwards. But I think that's some of the more like fitted outfits that she's wearing. Like even when she's just in a white t-shirt and jeans when she's with Elena, it's like the cute little like lettuce ruffle edged and it's like very fitted t-shirt, not like a baggy shirt. So I think some of that is coming through, unfortunately, because of the network. But it is nice that it like matches the season that they're in right now.
But it could also reflect her coming into her own a little bit because she was more reserved and more sheltered and more shy the first year. And now she's a little bit more confident and a little bit more secure, kind of getting her footing a little bit so she can express herself a little bit more confidently.
That makes sense.
And her hair looked amazing. I'm just like trying to savor these moments.
Oh no!
I know.
The first few moments.
Stop.
Season 2, we have her
my
gorgeous
God.
hair. It's like got like summer highlights.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. But then back at the loft, and here's that Sean invited Julie to live there, and they're chatting about it. How do you feel about it? And Ben's like, I don't really care, but I don't know how she'll feel about it since me and Felicity might start dating. And Sean just gives him this look and tells Ben that Felicity is not exactly the girl you date. She's the girl you marry. And I just want to rant here for a second. I absolutely hate
Preach.
when people say this. And also, they're 19. Like, why are we even talking about marrying? And just let them live their lives and date and do what they want. Like, why do they have to put some big heavy thing on it? And also that certain girls are for dating and certain girls are for marriage. I hated the whole thing. And I'm like, Sean, get out of their lives. Let them live.
Yeah, shut your old ass up. Go get your
I
own
know.
life.
Like you're doing so well with the ladies.
Yeah, he loves to give him advice when he has literally nothing to give advice about. So Sean says that Ben is not ready for Felicity. She's thoughtful, challenging, complicated girl who examines the world she sees, and you're like, this idiot. And of course, he's taking a bite of food that just came out of the microwave. It's hot. And he's like, oh, it's hot. And he does that like head scratching thing with his palm. I don't even know what to call that. But I'm like, yeah, he does look like an idiot.
Yeah.
But he's a sweet idiot in this episode. Ben doesn't buy. He's like, you know what? You do what you want about Julie and I'll do what I want with Felicity. He's like, I can't help it. I like her. We idiots like Felicity.
Oh, so sweet.
That hurt, though. Because Ben already doesn't feel great about himself. Like, he probably does think he's an idiot in a lot of ways, and I think that was already starting to, like, touch that raw nerve he's got about how he sees himself and how he measures up or doesn't measure up. So, that was a good scene that they planted early on up front. Like I said, they're jacking up the conflict this season.
Oh, yeah.
Right off the start.
Meanwhile, Felicity continues to tell Sally that she used to just hope to run into Ben, and now they're kissing in the back room of Dean and DeLuca and making plans. We see them in the back room kissing and making out. Javier sees them, rolls his eyes when he sees them in the back room, which is funny because they're all like lovey-dovey.
He loves that shit, though. He only acts bothered.
Even though, yeah, he does love it. Felicity tells Sally that Elena saw it coming. And so we finally get to see Elena. She's back, and she too just looks fantastic. I love the long, like, boho braids on her and her boho top. She's just so pretty. So they are meeting up together and carrying a table. We find out that when Noel got back from Berlin, he found a 2-bedroom sublet near Epstein Bar and told Elena about it, asking, anyone you know need a roommate? And she said, yeah, me. So now Elena is living with Noel. And she even asked Felicity if that was okay. And Felicity said it was. Is it okay? I don't know. But they're doing it.
Wishful thinking. They're so naive and hopeful. How adorable.
Yeah. They carry this dining room table to Elena's apartment, Elena and Noel's apartment. And the apartment's gigantic. Bigger than my current 1-bedroom apartment as a 30-something in LA. It's just absolutely nuts. But Felicity's clearly feeling antsy being there. She says she's going to head out, but Elena offers her a drink to stay and celebrate her new apartment. But Elena does acknowledge, she's like, I know you being here does make you uncomfortable. Felicity says it's fine, which I really think it's fine. She does ask Elena, though, if Noel has mentioned her at all. And Elena says no, which worries her. Says, all right, though, you need to dish on Ben. She said, are things good? She's like, yeah, things are good. Elena says, are they good or are they good? And Felicity says that they're good, they're not good. But Elena still wants to know, when are things gonna get good? So right at that moment, though, is when Noel comes home. And it's very awkward. So he asks Felicity, like, hey, how's it going? She says, fine, it's just a pleasantry. It's not meaningful. Then Elena makes a choice. I don't know if it's the right one, but she makes a choice to pretend to go get something and leaves Felicity and Noel alone in the apartment. I don't know if I would have done that. I know she wants them to talk, but you can't force people to, like, talk if they don't want to. I don't know if I would have done that.
I would have stayed, like, a little longer. Just, like, see the vibe and then decide. But she was, like, out of there immediately.
Bye.
Bye. Here, you guys talk.
Yeah. Which Felicity could have chosen to leave too and been like, I will help you buy that chair. Let's go.
Oh, I gotta go too. I have an RA thing. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Any excuse. She could have just walked out.
Felicity wants to talk to Noel, of course.
Of course. Gotta talk it out.
Yep. But it's very awkward. Noel isn't talking, not facing her. He's, like, putting groceries away. And also, again, I will acknowledge when Noel's doing weird things. So, like, he had to know, rooming with Elena, that he's gonna see Felicity. Like, I thought he would have been better prepared for that moment. Like, maybe he wasn't expecting to see her right then, but he had to have known Felicity's gonna be in my apartment at some point. Yep. She's best friends with Elena. So I would think he'd be better prepared for this. But she tries to make some small talk about how hard it is to be an RA. And she says that she called him in Berlin. And someone else answered. Noel said it must have been Beth. And that Berlin turned out to be wonderful, by the way. It's the best 3 months of his life. He said, sure, at first, I was wondering what you and Ben were up to, which positions you were in, who was on top. Felicity, of course, grimaces because it's awkward and gross. But he says, hey, it's just probably the same things that you were just wondering about me and Beth. Felicity says that this is horrible, how they're talking to each other. Also, Felicity, you did ask, like, why did you bring up that someone else answered the phone? Like, I wouldn't have even asked about that.
Yeah,
like,
not a good
weird.
time.
I don't like the self-blame, though. This is awful the way we're talking to each other. He was doing all the shit talking. She was just trying to, like, be cool and, like, go forward. And he was, like, dumping all this nasty shit out.
Yep.
But he said, I don't know, it feels liberating saying exactly what I'm thinking. He says that it feels great telling her that he slept with Beth and that she was great. He said, is it revenge? I don't think so. Just feels good to settle the score, make sure that there's parity here. She said, it's not a competition. He said, well, whatever it is, it's over. He can honestly say that he never wants to see her again. He says he knows that they will, he just doesn't want to. And then he goes into his room.
Nasty. Unnecessarily mean. It's one thing to have your feelings hurt and be mad or be salty, be bitter, whatever. Just like, don't say anything then. You don't have to go out of your way to be hurtful. And that's why I'm so not into Noel, because he goes out of his way to be hurtful. He's intentional with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's ugly.
I wonder, though, if the roles were reversed, would we be like, yeah, Felicity, yeah, slay, get it, girl, trash it? I don't know. I just wonder if her heart was broken like that, we'd be like, yeah, girl, you tell him.
But she wouldn't be saying it like that. She wouldn't be like, I slept with someone and it was great. Like,
she was great.
She wouldn't do it like that.
Yeah. If Elena was going off on somebody, absolutely slay. But for Felicity, I would be disappointed. I would be disappointed if Felicity was talking to somebody like that, because she's not cruel, and he was intentionally trying to be cruel and hurt her. He went out of his way to be hurtful, and I don't think Felicity would ever do that.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have like a sassy comeback or something like that, then I'd be like, that's right, girl. But for somebody to intentionally be hurtful, I don't like that. I'm like, that's the line for me. So even if it was beloved Felicity, I wouldn't be behind that.
Okay.
Just standing up for herself, that's different. But going out of your way to be mean is just, that's ick.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand where it's like he wouldn't want to talk to her right now. Like, you can't force him to talk to someone. If he doesn't want to talk to her, that should be fine. Like, she just wants everything to be fine. I want to talk. I want to put it past us. I want everyone to be over it. Like, that's not going to happen, and you can't make people do that. But also, yes,
There's a nice way to say that. You can be like, I'm not ready to be friends. Like, it's fine if you're going to be here and hang out with Elena. I get this is Elena's space too, but I'm not cool with us right now, and I need some space. Not, I fucked somebody else and she was amazing.
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
And I agree with that. So then Felicity is upset, goes back to the dorm, and Megan is playing some like hardcore metal music, recording their answering machine message, which
who hasn't done that?
I like which you used to have to like leave a message when you wanted to talk to someone, and you had to have like this outgoing message thing. Like, we don't even do that on cell phones anymore, really. Nobody calls people and leaves voicemails even. So I just thought that was funny that they have like an answering machine and she's recording a message.
But people used to do that with their cell phones too back in the day. Have some sort of mood music playing, like some sort of some vibe going with their music, and then they'd be like, blah, 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 I'll call you back, leave a message, whatever. And then the music would crank up again. Like, it was a whole thing. It was fun back then. But yeah, it's silly now. It's silly to think about that.
We didn't have the internet. We had to do something to pass time. So Megan can tell that Felicity is upset, though. She asks her what the bug is up her butt, and Felicity tells her to lay off. Megan doesn't. She's like, just tell me. Are you pissed that I told everyone about your sexual history? Felicity says she's not in the mood for another one of Megan's sarcastic remarks. And Megan says, well, I thought about it, and you're right. It was really screwed up. And at Wicca Camp, like, she learned that everything that you put out there comes back to you ×3. And so she's sorry. She's like, here I am trying to be a good roommate. I also thought it was funny. We mentioned the craft last season.
Yes,
and like,
I was just thinking
I only know the ×3 thing because of
yes.
the craft.
Yes, me too. I'm like, yes, I know what she's talking about.
So yeah, she's just here. She is trying to be a good roommate. Felicity says, well, that's really weird. Weird that she's trying to be a good roommate. But Megan's like, just tell me what's going on. She sits down. She does like the thinker position. Like, she's ready to really listen to Felicity. And we get the dramatic, like, Felicity thinking music. And she starts to tell her that when she chose Ben, you know, it had this horrible ripple effect on everything. She knew that she would hurt Noel and Julie. And as she's pouring her heart out, Megan pops up. She's like, oh, you know what? I can't do this. You're just going to pour your heart out, and I'm going to say something sarcastic. So just going to stop you right there. And again, in these really intense moments, then we have the comic relief, and you just have to love it.
That was very insightful of her, though. She knew her limitations, and I appreciate her stating them. And speaking of wardrobes, all these people changing it up, she was wearing a light colored top. It was bright and had butterflies on it. So she wasn't doing her whole like dark goth look either. She also changed it up. I was like, oh, that's very pretty.
More of that Mother Earth nature.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know, maybe.
Nature,
I did notice the necklace, the like big butterfly necklaces and stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe she's also more open, and that's her wardrobe is showing that.
She's trying. She tried. She did her best.
She's an RA. She's got to be like emotionally available for her advisees.
Sort of. She's doing what she can. That's all any of us can do. Just do our best.
So then in Julie's room, her roommates are cheering, and it's a very chipper nightmare. And she's basically decided she's going to move out. She can't take it. So Felicity heads over to the loft looking for Ben. Ben's not there, but guess who is? Julie moving in. And Julie, I don't know. She seemed very like smug in that moment. Like, no, Ben's not here. Smiley face. I'm going to go back and move into my room. It felt very calculated too.
Bitch.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
Yeah, that was nasty. She's nasty like Noel, but in a different way.
Different way.
She's a little bit more covert.
This felt calculated.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Noel was like, in the moment, he's pissed, he's saying shitty stuff. This was like, I'm going to go fuck up their new relationship. Because later she says, it's not going to last. I'm like, seems like you are trying to get it to not last. I don't know. Yeah.
Trying to facilitate it not lasting, yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting. So then Felicity heads over to Dean and DeLuca, where Ben is working to see what he thinks about Julie moving in. And he really doesn't care. He says, don't worry about it. But Felicity thinks that it's still weird. But Ben says, hey, I want to tell you something. But Javier interrupts because he needs Ben to work, not talk to Felicity all day. So Ben says that they're going to go out tonight and he'll pick her up at 8. But Felicity looks nervous because this is classic code, right? Like he's going to break up with her. Like, oh, we need to talk. I want to tell you something. So she's freaking out to Sally, thinking that he's going to break up with her. Then we go to Epstein, where Elena and Julie are hanging out now. And Elena tells her that she's playing with fire living at the loft. And again, she speaks the truth. I agree with Elena. But Julie says there's not a chance that her and Ben will last. And again, I think she's trying to make sure that they don't last.
Absolutely.
Who thinks this is a good idea?
Sean. He's the only person.
Fair. That is actually, 100% true. So then we see Noel sits down too. So he's there. He's got movie times. He suggests the Blair Witch Project. But Elena says she's not going to go see that movie. It's too scary. So as the three of them are discussing the movies, Felicity and Ben show up for their little date and talk. And instead of just going and sitting down, they go up to the table and say hi. And Elena says, well, this isn't awkward. But Noel says that they're all adults. Now, bear with me. This is a long, meaty scene with so much back and forth. So bear with me here. But yeah, Noel says, oh, no, we're all adults. We can handle it. I'm like, based on the last scene, I don't know if you can handle it, Noel, or if you're an adult, but okay. So then Ben says, oh, hey, Elena, I haven't seen you yet. And I don't know why I die. This is so funny. Noel says, you haven't seen me yet either, Ben. He's like, hi, Noel. Hi, Ben. Like, I cracked up. Even though it's like an intense moment, I just died laughing.
I lost it too. I did. That was great.
So they're just going to be like, we'll go see the movie. I don't know what crew to call that. The Noel, Elena, Julie crew. They're going to go see their movie. And Noel's like, but, unless you two want to come with us. And Ben says, you know what? You don't have to be such a dick about it.
Precisely.
And Noel says, this is exactly the amount of dick that I need to be about it. And, oh, man, things are heating up. And Elena says, oh, so is this the new Noel that you've been talking about? And he tells Elena to shut up, which is never a good idea. Because then Julie's like, what? No, you shut up. Elena says, don't tell me to shut up. Ben yells at Noel, like, don't tell Elena to shut up. That's great. Be a jerk to Elena. And Noel says, if you talk to me again, I'll kick your ass. And Ben says, oh, really? How? With your computer?
Oh, my gosh.
Like, this whole scene.
I died.
It's so aggressive, but so funny.
Yep.
I mean, oh, your computer. Because it's true. What is Noel talking about?
Yeah,
like,
I
I'll kick your ass? What?
No.
Since when? Then Felicity says to Noel, like, I'm sorry. Is that what you want? Like, is that what you want to hear? And he starts yelling, but at the same time, Julie's like, unless you're transferring colleges, like, we don't want anything from you. I'm like, Julie, really? They're going to transfer universities because they had a breakup? Come on. Ben tells Felicity to let it go, but she says, no, like, I'm not going anywhere. She parks herself down at a table. And Noel says to Elena and Julie, let's just go see Blair Witch Project. Elena says, I'm not seeing that movie. Felicity then tries to continue to have her little date with Ben. Says, oh, Ben, so what did you want to tell me? And Julie says, oh, probably how things are getting too serious, right, Ben?
Bitch.
Terrible.
And Ben says, you know what? I can't take this. I'm leaving. Felicity, are you coming with me? She says, no, I'm not leaving because of this. Ben says, well, you're either stronger than I am or you're a masochist. But Felicity's staying. Ben leaves. He does the shoulder touch.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Don't worry. I'll mention it. Which was, again, I will admit, it was nice because I think in the moment, like kissing her or something would have been way too much for the situation they were in. But it was like a nice little, like, I'm still here. I got you. It was a nice little,
I got you. Yeah.
Without being like overtly gross.
I got chills again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not kidding.
Over the
Yes.
If any straight single men listen to this podcast, that's all it takes is a touch on the shoulder.
Yes.
This is a fake gesture.
It's so easy. It's so easy.
Do you know what it reminds me of from Pride and Prejudice when Mr. Darcy takes Elizabeth's hand from the carriage and it's just like so awesome and charged and sweet? Yeah, it's like that.
That gave me chills too.
The hand squeeze heard around the world.
Yeah, that's the one.
So Ben leaves, and Julie says to Felicity, he gets up and goes pretty easily, doesn't he? So then Elena asks Noel to borrow some money. Noel flips out at that. He's like, how did I know that was coming? And what's that supposed to mean? So they're all just fighting, even the people who didn't date or break up. Julie says this blows, and her and Noel leave. So Elena's sitting at her table alone. Felicity's sitting at her table alone. And Elena asks her, is this what the rest of the year is going to be like? And that's the end of the scene.
That was loaded.
Very intense.
But I like the writing here, not just because it was intense, but because they really stayed true to the characters. Elena was not about the Blair Witch Project. We remember from season 1 her feelings about Halloween and her distaste for the spooky. Like, she's not feeling it. I was like, okay, that's good. And while we were just talking right now, I realized Ben wanting to leave, I think is so fair and reasonable because of course he doesn't want to listen to people arguing. He had to do that with his parents. And I'm sure that's activating and triggering for him in that moment to be in that position. So, you know, he's trying to be nice and be like, you're either stronger than I am or you're masochist, because he probably does feel that way. Like, it is torture to sit there and watch people argue like that. That's been a painful experience for him. I like that. I think on the surface, it could look like he's just like super conflict avoidant. Like, he doesn't want to like be mature enough to just sit and write it out. But I think it's really rooted in his childhood and like, no, I'm not going to be participating in this.
I mean, he is probably conflict avoidant, but like there's a reason why.
Yeah, but not in a like I'm immature and I don't want to talk this out kind of way, in a self-preservation kind of way. Like, I can't be exposing myself to this. You know, I have a choice now. I can walk away from this. So no, I'm not going to sit here on purpose and be mired in this yuck. That was good stuff. Sometimes maybe I give the writers too much credit, but no.
No, I think that's exactly right. I also think it's important setup for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
We need to solve a lot of problems here between so many different people. Like, now Noel and Elena are kind of fighting.
There's
like
some conflict, some tension.
Julie's pissed at 2 different people. Noel and Ben are going to fight. Not really. But, you know, like, there's just so many different dynamics here and lots of issues that we have to solve. So this is the setup for the season. Is this how it's going to be? Like, we hope not. But that's what everyone's wondering now. And even Felicity was like, I don't know if they'll ever forgive me, so we're going to find out.
Yeah.
How the rest of the season goes, but there's a lot to work with here. So after all of that, Felicity's in her room, laying in bed, just thinking when Ben knocks on the door. I feel like this is many times throughout their friendship so far last year. He's always the one like knocking on her door middle of the night to talk. But he sits down next to her and says that they never got to talk. And she said that it's driving her crazy. She's like, can I say something first? He says, sure, you usually do, which is very true. She says, if this is a breakup, could you just do it fast? Don't stammer and talk searchingly. Just say it, get it over with, rip the Band-Aid. But he says that he wanted to make sure that she knows that Julie moving in doesn't mean anything. He doesn't want her to be worried about that. He said he wanted to tell her that he's happy that they're doing this. He's so happy. And he missed her when he was in Mexico. And
crying.
So then they kiss again.
Hottest Ben moment, y'all. Oh my God. I thought for sure the first time I saw this that they were going to break up and he was going to do something dumb. But he said that, and in that moment, I believed that he was really felt all those things, and it was just
Sincere.
so nice. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a nice vulnerability. Like, I'm happy we did this. Like, he
Mhm.
was keeping it real. He really meant it. And
Mhm.
I see Heather shaking her head, and I'll just
I'm nodding. I'm not shaking.
Okay,
I'm
you look, you're
nodding.
nodding suspiciously. You got us a
I'm
little
nodding.
side eye.
No, I'm
Mm.
thinking. I'm nodding up
Alright,
and down. Up
Okay,
and down
okay.
is I agree. This
Mm.
is I don't agree.
Your eyes told another story, but we'll get there when we get there.
I'm
Mhm.
wearing glasses. You just couldn't see my eyeballs.
Okay.
Yes. I think, yeah, when he wanted to talk to her, this is all stuff that he wanted to say. Yes.
I'm saying yes. I'm saying in this moment, he genuinely
Yes.
was sincere and meant it all. Yeah.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't think he's like leading her on or anything. No.
All right. I'll drink to that. Water because I'm sweating again.
Hydrate. So then at Noel and Elena's, Noel tells her that he didn't mean what he said. She said, "What, calling me cheapo?" And he's like, "I didn't say that. It's just that he feels like he's been spending a lot of money lately on the apartment." She says she has too, like that table. It set her back $90. He says he knows and he's sorry. So I do want to say, yes, he's an ass in many of these moments, but I do appreciate like he realizes he is wrong and he usually apologizes. So to me, none of us are perfect and we do and say things that we shouldn't. But to me, he's willing to admit that he made a mistake and said things he shouldn't have, especially for Elena, who has literally nothing to do with his beef with Felicity. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that he apologized to her.
Well, he did that because again, I think when he said what he said to Elena, he wasn't out of his way trying to be hurtful to her. I think he just had a little outburst because heat of the moment, blah blah blah, and then he could recognize that later. I still think that's different, even when he's apologizing to Elena compared to how he acted before in another context with Felicity. But I'm glad that he did try to walk it back and be like, yeah, that wasn't cool. Because yeah, they're gonna be living together. They don't want to live in conflict all year. So I'm glad that he tried to get things set straight.
And Elena says that she knows that things for him are not easy right now, but they're living together, so they're going to have to trust each other. He says that it's hard because her and Felicity are really good friends. But Elena says if there's anything that he wants to talk about to her, she will not tell Felicity. So I guess to even the score, as Noel would say, Elena decides to disclose something to Noel so that he has something on her. So then he would maybe feel more comfortable sharing things with her. So she opens up and tells Noel that she had an affair with Dr. McGrath. Noel looks shocked and then gets grossed out by it, which rightly so. And then Elena shares that McGrath called a few weeks ago, said it wasn't going to work out, and she hasn't heard from him since. And she also says that nobody else knows but Noel. So from now on, she just wants Noel to be honest with her, and he's got something on her too now. So he's like, okay, really? Like, you want me to be honest? That is the ugliest table I've ever seen. And so seeing that they've got some resolution here and they're opening up again, I do love their friendship so much too, even from last year. Like, I actually like them as roommates too. I think somehow they really balance each other out. Like, she gets him out of his shell a little bit more. And I think she can be a good influence on him too. Even though he's older, like, she's more mature. So I like that she can rub off on him.
Yeah. I also do like that she does seem a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more loose than she did her freshman year, because she was really intense her freshman year and starting out, like even her boho top that's light and flowy and airy. She's a little bit lighter and more flowy this year. I think just starting off, she seems a little bit more laid back and not super, super intense.
Also more open.
Yeah.
Everyone's more open and
coming out of their shells. Yeah. Growing.
They're all ready to fight, but they're open.
Yeah.
So then back at the loft, the three musketeers, Ben, Sean, and Julie, are eating, looks like breakfast, and it's quiet and awkward, but Ben says to Julie that if she's going to be mad at someone, she should be mad at him. And Julie asks him if he's giving her permission to be mad at him. He says, no, just don't take it all out on Felicity. He had a part of it too. My fault too. Julie says that she knows whose fault it was, just that over the summer she realized who she trusts and gives her heart to is her choice. Last year she just chose badly. But she said yes, she was mad at him last night, but she's not consumed by this. Her life is more than just him and Felicity. She goes to her room. Sean then asks Ben if he's broken up with Felicity yet, which, like,
Oh
are
my
they even
God.
officially dating yet? I
Right?
don't know. Can you even have a breakup
Like,
yet?
pump your fucking brakes.
Yeah. He has not, but Sean says, well, what if Felicity is in love with you? Would you still want to date her if you knew that she loved you? Ben says, yes, I like her. But Sean says, no, you got to end it. You're not ready for this. If you knew Felicity loved you, you wouldn't get freaked out. Ben says, if I knew Felicity loved me, I wouldn't get freaked out. Sean's like, repeat it. And the second time, it was a little less confident, right? And Sean's like, nope, see, I'm right. You got to break this off. It's like a melanoma, which I don't know what that reference is about. Like, what, she's going to kill you? Like, I didn't get that metaphor.
Remove the
Sean.
cancer
Yeah.
before it spreads.
Yeah.
I'm like, spreads to what? Like love? I don't get it. But whatever. So, question. Had Sean not said all of this stuff, how do you think Ben would be acting? Do you think he'd be scared, or did Sean plant this in his head?
I feel like he planted it.
I think in light of other things that happen a little bit later, he still would have reacted this way, but this kind of fast-tracked that reaction.
Well, I don't think that he would have what he's about to do in the next scene. I don't think
Right,
he would have done that.
Mm. Right. I agree with that. I think he still would have had the same reaction, though, regardless of what Sean said.
Same reaction, right? But he might not have
Actually done that.
Yeah.
deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, Ben heads to Felicity's. She's arguing about a ferret of one of the advisees with Megan. So she has to go deal with this ferret with Megan, and Ben is left in her room alone with the tape recorder to Sally sitting there. So he decides to pick it up, rewinds it, and listens to it, where Felicity says, all I know is I want this feeling to last the rest of my life. God, Sally, I don't know what this is, but I mean, maybe it's love. And he just like drops his head like, oh no. And I just think, oh, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Womp womp.
Yeah.
So Julie was kind of right at Epstein. Like, things get a little too serious. He
Mhm.
runs away really easily. So, like, Julie, what she said was shitty, but like, oh, she was great.
She was great, but why was she right? I think we need to give him a little bit more credit because, like we said, he was sincere when he said before, I'm glad we did this. I think all of us agree that he meant that.
But because he didn't know how she really felt or what that she was thinking it might be love.
Right. I think that it has more to do with how he feels about himself than how Felicity feels about him.
Yeah, I think so.
And his rejection of being cared for on that level because it's so uncomfortable and so foreign to him, so unusual, so different. I think that's the problem. I don't think it's because things were quote unquote too serious. I think it's because he can't accept being loved by somebody else.
Okay.
Girl, did you see? Okay, here's the thing. The directing, the writing, the acting, stellar in this moment. Because guess what happened? I don't know if you noticed or not. We noticed some gentle touches here and there. I noticed his breath rate increased and it became more shallow.
What?
I think, I know, you may
Sorry,
think I'm
what?
reaching. When he heard that, he started breathing. It was a little bit more rapid and more shallow. I think his fight or flight system got activated. That may seem like a reach, but I genuinely am telling you this was a trauma response. Like the thought of somebody loving him is so scary.
Well,
and so threatening.
And it might be. I'm just saying, yeah, he does run.
Because he's perceiving it as a threat. We run away from threat, fight or flight. He flighted away from a threat, a perceived threat. It's not like something wrong with her or the relationship or anything like that or how he feels about her. I think it has everything to do with how he feels about himself, which is shitty. He feels shitty about himself, and I think he doesn't think he deserves to be loved, especially by somebody as fabulous as Felicity.
So then why is he pursuing her? I guess that's where all of that
Because he's
stuff
happy when
is-
he's with her. They did have a good time. And I think the reason why we didn't get to this point sooner is because he spent the whole summer in Mexico, so they didn't have time to get all the feels out and see where it could go and what that would feel like. I think he genuinely enjoys her company and felt happy with her. I think he's just terrified of being loved by somebody because that's just too great of a risk.
Yeah, I guess that's just where I'm like, then why even pursue things with her?
Why pursue things with anybody? I mean, we want companionship. Humans want companionship. Like
I know, but if he knows he doesn't,
he didn't know she was gonna love him. Like that because
but again, what's the point of dating these people then?
hanging out, having fun,
they're
having fun,
19.
being a young adult. Yeah, just being a young adult and having a good
But
time.
he knows how Felicity is. She's not just, I'm a casual person, let's just hang out. She is, like Sean's saying, she's a serious person. She overanalyzes everything. He knows that about her.
Yeah.
But that's not
And,
the
like-
same thing as her loving him. Her being an intense, thoughtful person is not the same thing as being loved by her. He likes that she's intense and thoughtful enough to pursue hanging out with her. That's not what he's rejecting. He's rejecting love.
I'm not understanding.
I see what you're saying, Heather, and that comes up again.
People don't make sense. That's why people like me exist and have to give them therapy. We're complicated and messy and don't make sense all the time. It's a nervous system thing, and that doesn't have to be rational. That's like the opposite of rational.
No, what you're saying, Heather, that comes up, not to give too many spoilers away, but I think it's either the next
Yeah.
episode or whatever they have that
I think
conversation.
it's the next one.
Yeah.
That might be a lack of insight on his part, though. I don't think he's going to be like, my nervous system got activated because of my childhood trauma. He's not going to come up with that, and she's not either. I'm coming up with that because I'm a crazy person.
I'm not talking about the breathing anymore, but okay.
Damn, I gotta watch people's necks.
I'm just saying it was a nice touch. Like I said, like I really appreciate the writing, the directing, and the acting. Like, for him to present that way, I never noticed it before. I noticed it because I watched it 3 or 4 times in a row the last couple of weeks to prepare for this. But yeah, I was like, holy shit, something's happening. He's getting activated in a not good way. And we can't help that. That's a reaction we don't have control over.
I mean, you can see he's like hanging on every word, like what is coming next.
He looks terrified.
It might be love. He's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
He looks terrified, though. He doesn't look disappointed or mad or unhappy. He looks scared. I think he didn't expect it at all. I don't think it entered his mind, you know, where you're saying, like, well, why bother doing this and that? I don't think it entered his mind because I think he does see himself as so unlovable. It didn't occur to him that somebody could feel that way about him. I think it really caught him by surprise.
I will say now that we've gotten to this point in the show, I can finally say, like, why last year, I couldn't spoil it, but this is why I can finally defend myself and say that I think Felicity was still obsessed with Ben last year, and like why Noel's insecurities were valid, because the second that Ben did show an interest in her, she picks him. So, like,
which second was that? When he ran off into the elevator with Hannah? Was it that second? Because he did that.
No, when they're about to sleep with each other before any of that happened.
What? What are you talking about?
At the Worcester Hotel, when they were supposed to have sex for the first time.
She was in her head too much.
I'm just saying, everyone's like, he's the one who's obsessed with Ben and her. She's not the one obsessed. I think she is. I do think that she was still obsessed with Ben. And at the second that he shows interest, she would have dropped Noel. And I think Noel can tell. I think Noel could tell that.
Do you think that if this thing with Ben, where Ben had asked her to go on this trip, would have happened this way, if he had asked her before the things with Hannah and Noel went down, would the same thing have occurred? You still think she would have gone with Ben before the Hannah incident?
I think if over Christmas break or over the holiday break, if they were in Palo Alto together and he was like, hey, I like you, let's go out, she would have done the same thing before all the Hannah stuff.
Yeah. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think she was committed when she was with Noel. I think things severed because Noel went off with Hannah, and that's when things fell apart, because then she had sex with Eli, and then Noel is obsessed with Felicity's sex life, and things went sideways from there. I absolutely don't think she would have cheated on Noel if they were on winter break and Ben was like, yo, what's up? I don't think she would have gone for it. I think she's got more integrity than that. Give this girl some
I'm not saying
credit.
cheating. She might have just broke things off with Noel, or she would have been conflicted and, oh, it's so complicated.
I don't think so.
I do.
No.
Yeah, I don't.
So that's all. This is I'm defending my position from.
No, that's okay. I mean,
the Gimme an O episode. I still think she was obsessed with Ben because she still is. She's clearly not over him because now she has picked him. So if she were truly over him, she wouldn't have done anything when he's, oh, you should come with me and I'm going to kiss you. And I think she would have been like, oh no, we're just friends. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's an opening. She takes it, but to say the second he shows interest, I think is a little bit severe because she was very conflicted. She even said the airport address. She didn't automatically just be like, yes. She didn't jump in that fast. Like, she was very conflicted, and she even chose Noel first before she changed her mind. I don't think it's that simple that she would just be like, yes,
That's
I've
already
been obsessed the whole
when
time.
Noel and Julie found out and all of that conflict. Like, she was going with Ben before all of those other people found out about everything else going.
She's still
She was gonna
conflicted,
go with
though.
Ben. I know, but she still chose him multiple times.
She did. Yeah, she did end up doing that, but I don't think she would have done that if they were in a solid-ass relationship and not having just broken up and not even knowing what they are. Like, they weren't even, like, being like, yes, we're dating again. Like, they were still, that was still very much in limbo. So to compare her reaction to that compared to, like, we're actively dating and Ben might show some interest, I don't think so. I think she would react very differently if they were securely dating. If Noel and her were together, or like all the way together, and there wasn't any rocky relationship stuff going on, I don't think she would have dropped him.
Agreed.
Well, let us know in the comments what you think.
I mean, I don't think you're thinking very much of Felicity if you're saying this. I can't believe this is coming from you, Heather.
I don't think that much about her. I think she's in love with Ben. Like that. I'm not saying that's just she moved to New York for him. Like, I just think she had wanted him for a long time, and now, like, Ben had other interests elsewhere, and so she had to get over it and date Noel. But I do think, she was always into Ben. It was always Ben.
As it should be.
Mm-hmm.
We agree.
Do you agree? Finally. Yeah, crazy to see where we're gonna go forward when the whole group is in turmoil. And also, still no tape back from Sally. Justice for Sally.
Sad.
We haven't heard her in such a long time.
We need to hear from her because we can't decide amongst ourselves. We need her to set the record straight.
I need her advice.
Yeah, we do.
I need her insights and / therapy. All right, any last thoughts? Season 2, episode 1. We're back.
Oh my gosh. I'm just terrified people are going to think I totally lost my mind because I said he was breathing too fast. It probably sounds like the biggest reach.
I'm sure Scott Speedman will really appreciate that you noticed his acting abilities and all the thought that you probably put into that moment.
I feel like he should appreciate because I really did appreciate him in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. Scott Speedman.
Speedy, if you're listening, we appreciate you.
We appreciated your small touches.
Well, I'll contact him.
Keep it up. Your breathing and your light
your
touches.
Sweet smiles.
Oh.
Your breathing. Well, everyone, thank you as always for returning to the podcast and rewatching Felicity with us. We're excited for the season ahead.
Bye.
Bye.
Felicity Was Here is produced, written, and edited by Heather, Melissa, and Dr. Joe. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Felicity Was Here Pod. If you're enjoying the pod, please leave us a review and help us spread the word. We appreciate you and would love to hear from Felicity superfans like us. So send us your feedback, ask us your burning questions, or just say hey at felicitywasherepod@gmail.com. We may even read your note in a future episode.